We would like to thank you for our presentation today. My name is Chayla Barrington Cruz, and I would like to introduce Harley Mills and Chloe Shupak. We are doing a consultation for Ellingson School. The setting and the population of our school is an all-inclusive preschool with the ages 3 to 5. Out of the 200 students, 150 of them require special education. The staff consists of a principal, a BCBA, a teacher in the classroom, an occupational therapist, and one speech therapist, along with parent volunteers. The goals to implement within our preschool is functional communication training. This intervention of functional communication training has proven children on the autism spectrum and children with other communication disorders. Now, you might ask, why is there a need for change? At Ellingson preschools, there have been reports of behavior such as tantrums, and because of the actions of these high disruptions, students are not obtaining the appropriate education. And now I will pass this along to a group member.
What is functional communication training? Functional communication training, otherwise known as FCT, is an intervention that uses functional analysis to identify challenging behavior and introduces communicative responses as alternatives to these behaviors. FCT has been a successful intervention for reducing behaviors such as aggression, self-injurious behavior, tantrums, and oppositional behavior. There are 3 steps of FCT. First, functional analysis of behavior. Second, identification of an appropriate communicative response to replace the unwanted behavior. Third, develop and implement a treatment plan. Step 1. Determine a functional analysis of the behavior by using direct and indirect measures. Direct measures would include observations or ABC data, ABC being antecedent behavior consequence. B, you could do indirect measures such as checklists, questionnaires, etc. Step 2, select a communicative response to refer to behavior. Selected modality, verbal communication, alternative augmentative communication, AAC, gesture, sign language, picture cards, etc. When you're selecting the to teach the child, and if this communicative response And step 3, develop a treatment plan. Teach the child communicative response to replace the unwanted behavior. Consider the level of prompting needed, the type of reinforcer, and the availability of opportunities for using the new skill.
There are 10 components that should be addressed when implementing a treatment plan. The first component, data collection procedures. It is crucial to continuously collect data to guide decision-making about the FCT progress. Also, treatment decisions. Some examples are antecedents and frequency of communication. Number 2, seizing the environment. This includes all natural opportunities to teach communication skills that should take place throughout the day. For example, when teaching students to request an item during lunchtime. Also, arranging the environment should be done to promote communication skills. For example, placing an object out of reach in order to have the child request it using the trained communication response. Number 3, planning for generalization. The process of taking the learned communication response and applying it to other settings. This can be done across people, environments, and across items and situations. Number 4, prompting. The least intrusive prompt should always be used first. For example, if a student whistles to gain attention, they would be told to hold up a card that says, "I need a break." Also, prompts vary depending on students' level of functioning and should be faded as soon as possible to promote student independence. Number 5, reinforcing. Reinforcement should be provided independently and when a child requests for it, or they may not associate the communication response with receiving the requested item. Number 6, extinction. All problem behaviors should be ignored while the trained communication response is reinforced. Although this may not always be possible. For example, if a child hits themselves, a response block should be used as teacher prompts to use appropriate communication. Number 7, shaping. Communication should be shaped in individuals with autism. Approximations of desired response should be reinforced. For example, if a child is taught to request, "I want bubbles," if they only say bubbles, this response would be appropriate. Number 8, fading. Prompts should be faded and removed completely over time. This can be done in 2 ways. The first way is with pairing, and this involves combining 2 prompt types such as physical and verbal, and then removing the physical prompt. The second way is with a time delay. This is when a less intrusive prompt is used, which allowing a wait time before providing the prompt. This will give the child a chance to communicate independently. Number 9, delay. There are 2 types of delays that can ensure that the communication response continues to be used. The first type is time, which involves slowly increasing the time delay between the request and delivery of reinforcement. Type 2 is distance. As a child's communication increases, so should distance between the child and the observer. For example, if the observer is across the room, the child has to walk over to request the item. Number 10, following data. FCT is considered to be effective when the child consistently uses the trained communication response across settings, people, and items without prompts or engaging in problem behavior.
Data collection measures should include clickers to count frequency of behaviors, timers to accurately measure duration and average minutes of tantrums, and data sheets for recording and analyzing data. An example of a tantrum duration data sheet, as shown below, can be used to track the antecedent, duration, and ultimate frequency of the behavior. Also to be included in data collection measures are antecedent behavior and consequence data sheets. This helps to track the antecedent before, the behavior that occurs, and the consequence that follows the request of the child.
How to determine if FCT is successful. The communicative response should be increasing and the unwanted behavior should be decreasing. If the target communicative response is not increasing, the intervention should be reviewed and changes will be made. For example, changing the reinforcer, changing the frequency of the required behavior before the reinforcer is given, etc.
Now we will talk about how the overview of how we would implement this within the school. One of the team would be working on data collection. The other person will be working as a person helping teachers. Another person would be then we would have everybody, all of the staff, support staff, and volunteers would be trained of how to implement functional communication training. So now I will turn it over to my classmate.
How FCT will be implemented. To eliminate problem behaviors, the children will be taught PECs and to point to the desired item of choice. Children will be taught to take turns and request for the desired item by holding up a card that says "my turn" or using sign language. Modeling and physical prompts will be provided to the children when needed. They will be provided with reinforcement when the trained communication response is used. If the child engages in any problem behaviors when they need help, they will be prompted to say or sign, "I need help." All challenging behaviors should be ignored while the trained communication response is reinforced. The time delay should slowly be increased between the request and the delivery of the item, but the time will be lengthened over time to increase wait time. For example, if a child wants a particular ball, then they will have to man for the item using the proper sign, picture, or word. Following the appropriate man, the child will be enforced with the desired item. If the child engages in any problem behaviors when they need help, they will be prompted to sign or say, "I need help." All problem behaviors should be ignored, and only the trained communication response will be reinforced.
Well, of course, the question everybody would have is, how are we going to pay for this? So the funding streams and the startup costs, we anticipate that the cost to implement this intervention is going to be very low cost, and we're trying to be as cost effective as possible. So some of the expenses that we see are the elimination of the pictures, and with the elimination of the pictures, that can come from the class. Also, when we provide reinforcers as edible items to the children, we did to have the parents be active within this. So we would ask each of the parents if they can donate 2 or 3 boxes of edible treats. And this is a way that we keep the cost effective, and we could keep the cost low. So another way of being able to ensure that the intervention is being implemented correctly, we would conduct weekly audits, and this way we can ensure the accuracy in the data collection is being implemented correctly. And resources will be ready for the staff, and the staff to necessary materials, and the team overseeing the implementation of the functional communication training will provide supervision and will provide guidance to the staff and all involved. So in order for the strategies and utilization, first, everybody has to buy in. And that would be all staff members and volunteers, because everyone that has access to the child, helping the child, teaching the child, training the child, they all need to have a buy-in in this plan. Also, we would divide up the responsibility. Everybody would feel invested, and it doesn't feel as if something is just being put upon and another job for people to do. But if everybody has a responsibility and take part in this, everybody will feel invested. And also, as stated earlier, we would create a team. We would have someone who would collect data. We would have someone who works with the implementation of the reinforcements, somebody who would help with training the staff. So this would conclude our presentation. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope that you learned a lot by listening and watching our presentation today.